Welcome to Girls Talk Scuba. Now you're probably wondering who on earth we are. I'm Ellie.
I'm Emmy.
And this is the podcast where we talk all things scuba.
Including, but not limited to, education.
They don't know whether to do a buoyancy course or whether they actually want to just get some more fun dives under their belt.
Equipment.
We asked you what the first piece of equipment you bought was and the results are in.
And destination. I really want to dive in the Caribbean and I really want to go diving with sharks.
Make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode. Hello and welcome back to Girls Talk Scuba. We are back with you with another episode and I'm actually really excited for this one because
Same.
I think it's both something we're very passionate about. It's both something that also is talked about regularly as well in the community, and I think it's not just limited for beginner divers or advanced divers. It's something for everyone. So I'm really excited to dive in. But before we tell you the topic, how was your week, Emmy?
Well, you tell me. You were with me. We were out diving.
Yeah, we actually did go, didn't we? We went to kind of do photography and videography this week.
Yeah.
And it was very cold, wasn't it?
It was a bit nippy.
Yeah.
It was. I think it was 16.
No, it was 15.
Oh, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think... I decided to go in my 7mm because I was thinking, no, the sun's out, because the actual air temperature where we are in Spain is now about 30 degrees.
Yeah, we're at that point where we're putting on wetsuits and 30 degrees and then getting in 15 degree water.
So, and then I was like, no, I'll take my 7mm. And got in and I was freezing, so I kind of wish I...
By the way, can I just clarify that she dives with no hood or gloves when it's cold?
I can't wear hood or gloves. Can't do it.
You're crazy.
I don't know if anyone else does that, but in all honesty, a hood really messes up my ears for equalizing.
I get that. Yeah,
and
I get that.
I do the whole pull the hood to the side thing and try and let some water in and everything like that, but it does not work. It makes me feel so claustrophobic. And secondly, gloves, I can't do anything. I struggle to do up my clips or to get my camera out or put my weights in with gloves on, and I've probably lost about 10 pairs of gloves, maybe more. So I've just given up now with the gloves.
No gloves.
No gloves, no hood. Yeah, we're in that gang. Anyway, but something did actually make me quite sad when we were doing our videography and photography.
I already know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say.
It was that guy lying on the rock, wasn't it?
It was.
Oh, made my blood boil. It
was just, we were diving and we came across these other divers in the water, and there was someone with a actually quite a good rig setup of camera,
full on, frame, strobes, massive camera,
everything. But the thing I really didn't like was the fact that he was completely laying on the rock trying to get this photograph or something, but in the time that he was doing that, also killing a lot of
coral and blennies, probably. Blennies like the rock. So
it was kind of a bittersweet thing, because I loved the dive and I loved getting photographs with you and of the underwater life, but at the same time it always is a topic which I think we have to come back to. So on that note, we are talking today about underwater photography and videography, if that's something you're interested in. But I think leading on to the first thing I wanted to touch on was, we have to remember that when we're taking photos underwater for the aspect of showcasing the beautiful life that there is.
Be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and I think I was very excited to get into photography from the beginning of when I started diving. I wanted photos to show my friends, to put online, to look back on, but the truth of it is that when you start taking pictures underwater and using a camera, it is another thing to think about. And I think until you're confident and you feel confident in the water, that your mask could flood and then you can still operate or know where something is.
Especially with your buoyancy.
Your buoyancy as well is, I think, a massive factor. Because I think when you're diving using a camera, you're focusing on something, so you need to be able to control your buoyancy a lot more, so you're not bashing onto the ground, bashing into a rock. You're, for safety reasons as well, that you can control your buoyancy adequately. And it's not saying you're never going to be able to take pictures, but it is saying get yourself nice and comfortable in the water before you take
You'll
time
see
and buy
a
a camera.
massive improvement in your photos as well.
Moving on then, there was a poll in Girls That Scuba.
I saw.
And I found it really interesting because someone was asking, what camera should I go for? And I have actually tried quite a few of these as well. So it's interesting to see other people's opinions on the same thing. But in the poll, they asked about the recommended cameras and people put in their suggestions. GoPro came in at 10%, so it actually wasn't very popular in the poll. And I can't wait to get to that.
I understand why.
Yeah, because I bought myself a GoPro and I used it. And here's the thing. I think they're great for videos.
Exactly. I was just going to say the same thing. Videos.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with it.
You know, pelagic life. Or
landscape kind of pictures.
Yeah. But when it comes to photography, I'm not sold because you can't get up close, you can't change the zoom very well. You
can't get a good picture of a nudibranch because you just can't get that focus. It's just a blur.
Yeah.
And then
I think also, like, I tried the filters for the, you know, the lighting on it and trying to be able to...
I have the red one.
Yeah.
It works amazing.
And that's the thing. I love the GoPro, and I will take my GoPro if I'm doing kind of mainly video shots and everything like that. But it does frustrate me because I feel like underwater the capabilities may be a little bit limited. But that's because I'm more into like taking the photos as well. But
yeah,
I can understand why it came in at 10%. However, having said that, someone in the comments posted a picture of their GoPro footage and a photo that they took, and the photo they took was absolutely incredible of a turtle. So
yeah,
you know, I think it will, you know, user error maybe or whatever, but it is definitely something that I think is still worthwhile if you can't maybe go to the next bracket for the next camp.
Definitely. There's so many things that you can actually take a picture of with a GoPro. It's just not the tiny things. It's just not the teeny tiny nudibranchs. There's no chance with that.
Yeah.
Videos and landscape, big pictures, amazing. Can't go wrong with it.
The Sea Life Sport phone was mentioned, and this is basically where you can take your iPhone or your Android into the water in a casing, and therefore you can go around and take photos or videos of underwater life. I have never been a massive fan of these, but I haven't tried it. So I might try it in the next few weeks.
I've seen someone with it, and I've seen the quality of the pictures and things. I guess it's going to depend on what phone you have. Android users are going to know. Maybe not. Maybe not an Android, but iPhone. If I had an iPhone, I'd probably try the case.
But I'm just super worried about flooding. I have flooded cameras before.
I mean, when you say...
We have a graveyard of cameras that have been flooded.
When you say put your phone in a case, we're not talking about one of them clear plastic cases
don't do that.
With a Ziploc. We're talking about a proper hard case with locks and seals. So,
but even so, I would be devastated if I came out the water and it wasn't just my camera, it was my, you know, phone that I have all of everything on as well. So that, I think, has kind of been a deterrent for me. But at the same time, some of the quality of images I've seen come out from some of them
can be pretty good,
amazing as well. And I think it's very user friendly.
Yeah,
because you know how to use your phone's camera and it's very familiar to you.
Yeah, and you don't need to buy the camera and the case. It's just the case.
It's also an affordable option. You know, it's something that's quite inaccessible about, you know, underwater photography is you've not just got to buy the camera, you've then got to buy the underwater housing if you want to take it to a certain depth. So I think it is outstanding amount of money, and then if you want to get the lighting correct, you could then got to go for strobes, and you've got to get...
It's a very expensive hobby.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
I look at jealousy with all the people that pull up with their massive frames and their strobes and their camera, and I'm just like, wow.
But it's an investment as well, I think. I know people that have had their rigs set up for years and years and years, and you know, they love it and they stick with it. But I can see why, as I was saying earlier, the phone underwater housing for your phone is possibly a popular option because it keeps costs down and it's user friendly as well. Which leads us to our last one in the poll. There was quite a lot mentioned in the poll, but I went for the ones with the most votes. Otherwise, we'll have about 12 to go through. But the last that was mentioned was the Olympus TG6.
That's the one I'm rooting for.
Ta-da!
That's my baby.
And this had massive majority of votes for the TG6. Emmy and I are both proud owners of the TG6.
It's my absolute bit. I cannot think of using another camera. It's just the macro on it and the microscope mode on it, which you can get like pictures of the teeniest, tiniest things, and you can see every detail in the picture. It's just amazing. And then when you get back and you edit it and you're like, I took that picture.
That was really good. But I do also think, so the Olympus, it's a tough camera, they call it. So it's meant to withstand quite a lot of different environments. And it does give you a very good variation on the settings for underwater shooting. You've got
you have shallow water, deep water, the wide, the macro, the microscope.
Yeah,
I think that's all of them.
And you've also got the portrait version as well. Yeah. But it's user friendly, I find. If you just have the camera alone, then it's able to go down to 15 meters without flooding, basically. Now, if you have a TG6, you may relate to me if you have flooded one before. Secondly, if you do not have one, then this is a sound bit of advice, I hope. I once was diving in Gibraltar and I didn't have the housing, so I went diving with the Olympus TG6 alone, and I knew the 15 meters was the absolute depth limit to the camera, so I was like, I'm not going beneath that, it's fine. I didn't go beneath that, by the way. However, when you lock on the side of the Olympus camera, you have some clips basically that lock in where you put the SD card, where you charge up the camera, and with the other ports as well. And there's 2 of those on the camera. Now, before I got into the water, I locked one, and it was all shut basically. But you do have orange markers to show you, to alarm you when it's not properly shut. Anyway, I got into the dive, and not midway through, but probably about 5 minutes after I descended, actually, the camera wasn't working. So I spent the whole dive thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done to this camera? I surfaced and it was soaking wet inside. It had leaked, or not leaked, but it completely flooded. The battery was soaking wet, everything, and I was trying to, I don't know what I think I was trying to do, but I had the air warmer on in the car, trying to dry out the camera. It was terrifying. It was terrible. It was awful. The SD card was done as well. So just make sure.
Then she thought she was clever and would thought, I won't tell anyone about this. I'll just order another one and replace it.
I replaced it. But yeah, so always, I think the key thing as well with underwater photography, something I have learned from personal experience, is double, triple
check them locks.
Yeah.
And also get the little baggies that you can put inside your case to stop the condensation.
Moisture. Yeah. Which leads us on though to housings for any camera, I think, because with the housing, you take away that worry as well, I think, of how deep can I go? Is the camera definitely locked? Obviously on the housing you have to check it's locked, but even so, I think it's that extra bit of precaution. And if you're investing into a camera of a quite expensive nature, then you do want to make sure
that you actually take care of it.
Yes.
The amount of people I've seen that just, they have their camera clipped onto the BCD and they're taking off their gear and they just chuck it on the floor. And I'm looking at the camera and I'm
poor camera.
Rinse your camera after every dive, because all the buttons are going to get stuck with the salt. And make sure you put the cap back on the lens, because the worst thing that can happen is you get an amazing picture and there's one big scratch down the side of the lens.
No, or do you know on a lot of the housings will have the protector for the camera at the front, and make sure, normally it's on a, you have a string that will tie it so you can not lose it, but make sure that doesn't drift into your video. It's happened to me.
I just put mine in my pocket. As soon as I get in the water, it's in my pocket. As soon as my head's out the water, it's back on my camera.
It's a very good point about the lens as well. You don't want to scratch that. So that's talking about cameras. I personally, I think my favourite type is microscopic, with
the teeny tinies. Yeah.
And I like it when you can get a good old black background.
I love it when you can get so close that you can see the little ripples in their antennas.
Yeah.
That's like a weakness for me. Just love it.
But the other thing is, we were talking earlier when I mentioned GoPro, is white balance in photography. I think this is one of the first things, once I got the grip of, was actually life-changing.
I can't believe it took me so long to learn.
Oh,
I look back now and I think, what was I doing wrong? Like, why did it's so easy?
I think as we mentioned at the beginning, it is that another thing to think about, and then another thing on top of that is to white balance. So until you get comfortable with where all the buttons are on the camera, and then until you get comfortable in the water with the camera, until you do this, I think it all comes with time.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate having, lessons and a course with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Leo must have been sick of me. I asked him about 10,000 times. Can you set the white balance?
How do you do
the white balance again? Can you show me how to do it again? But I've got the hang of it now.
Little tips and tricks of the white balance. I don't know what other people do, but I've seen quite a few comments as well mentioning the same thing that I do, which is having like a little white slate on the camera, which is attached to it. So when you white balance, you can just literally pull the slate in front and take a picture of that. So that you can basically balance out the colour.
Yeah.
But another thing that you can do is
white fins.
Yeah.
Or you can just pick up a white stone.
Yeah.
Little pebble, just take a picture of it, bam. Or if you have nothing white around you, take a picture of the sun.
Yeah. That's
under the water, wherever the sun's coming from, the brightest area, get a picture of that and it will set the white balance.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the white slate and the white fins, but it will still set it.
I wonder if a lot of people have white fins that are photographers. I'm going to keep an eye out for that now. Moving on, because we've been talking about white balance and the sun and everything. Lighting.
Lighting is important, especially in shallower waters where the lighting really can hit. If you're in deeper water, the colours obviously disappear. The deeper you go, red being first. But if you have, if I'm deeper and I'm getting picture and I've lost the colour, because with GoPro you can use the red filter to get the colour back. With the Olympus you can't so much. So what I try and do, if I've got a torch on me, I'll try and angle the torch to where it's bringing out the light and I'll get a picture that way, because I can't afford no strobes yet. They are expensive.
I think it is what you say, isn't it? Because water does absorb light very quickly, and I think sometimes when your strobes are going to be very helpful, or a torch or something, because if you relate it to for example, when you have a torch and you shine it over something and then you can actually see the colour, that is effectively what your camera strobes are going to do for your photo. So I think it improves the clarity of it, improves obviously the colours of it massively. It is a really good investment if you can make it, because ultimately it makes your photos a lot better. However, having said that, there is you then go into another venture of how to learn to use the lighting properly as well.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck with that backscatter.
No.
Because you're going to see that a lot with the lights.
Yes.
You have to position the lights properly and know what you're doing, which I don't know yet, so.
This is the thing though, like, we are still learning.
Yeah.
And I think you never stop to learn as well, and you can do specific things to kind of help your learning go forward. For example, the dive organisations all offer kind of specialty courses with for underwater photography or underwater videography or whatever, but equally there is dive trips that you can go on that literally focus on
photography, which sounds really good.
It does, and I think it also puts you in a position where sometimes if you go on a dive group, something I find quite annoying if I'm traveling is I will book to go on a dive trip, but maybe 50% of them are not bothered about underwater photography, and I feel like I'm holding up the group, because as you know, when you're doing photography,
you want to take a minute.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes me about 5 minutes to get the good shot.
10 minutes.
But no, in all seriousness, and you feel like you're holding up the group. So when you go on a dive trip that's specialised for photography, it does take that pressure off, and it's like everyone is here.
And you can learn so much from the people around you. Everyone's different setups, everyone's different tips and tricks.
And I think I've learned so much more by speaking to people that are underwater photographers, and some of them also do like lessons and classes. And you can even, like, I message people all the time on Instagram and I'm like, hey, so which camera are you using?
What camera are you using?
Yeah, like what lights?
Light are you using? Are you using a frame? What frame? Tell me.
Yeah. And I think 9 times out of 10 people are so helpful, and it shows as well, because in the community loads of the comments have suggested great strobes.
I want to ask a question to the audience.
Okay, you ask.
I got given a fisheye lens for Christmas by my wonderful boyfriend, and it floods. I don't know where I'm going wrong. I don't know if it's meant to flood. I don't think it's meant to flood, because when I take the picture, there's little bubbles. Like, I can see in the picture the bubbles. Some people have said, yeah, it's meant to flood, but I don't think it's meant to flood, because the water stays in there for a few days. It just doesn't look very good. And then other people are telling me it's meant to have an O-ring on it, but it didn't come with an O-ring, so I'm confused. So if you know, please tell me, because I need some help with it. It's just sitting there getting dusty, and I want to use it.
It's valid, and I think this is the thing as well. I'm so worried about damaging expensive equipment.
When it first flooded, I ended the dive. Everyone out now. Got to dry it in the sun right now.
And that's probably my only other tip, actually, I would say, is make sure you don't leave your camera in the sun with the housing, because otherwise it will just fog up completely and you won't be able to see anything.
Yeah.
And take spare batteries.
Oh, yeah. That
batteries.
I guess that is like the little downside of the Olympus, is that if you want it for videos, it does tend to drain the battery a lot quicker. But apart from that, it's 10 out of 10. And
I would also say, check that there's an SD card in it, because that's also happened to me before.
Yeah, same.
Checks are really important. Not only dive checks, like buddy checks when it comes to cameras. If you are already doing, what checks you do, but if you're getting into the field of underwater photography, then you will be doing your buddy check and also your camera check. It's very important. But it is, the great thing about diving is there's a lot of different opportunities out there, and you don't just stop when you learn to dive. You don't just stop when you become a better diver. There's always things you can venture into and learn about. And you might not necessarily be in the place of interest now, but it might be in the future, or it might be something you aspire to do in the future. And my advice to anyone that's starting out with underwater photography, or maybe struggling with it at the moment, is just keep going. I am not a pro in it by any means, shape, or form. If I look at my pictures from last year, I cringe. Yeah, but it's practice. And looking back on my photographs and where I've come to now, they're still not as good as everyone else's, but I've come a long way in where I was a year ago, and it is just practice. Practice and taking advice, asking, speak up and ask, because I guarantee as soon as you ask someone, what camera do you use, they'll just throw all the information at you, because it's something that they love doing. They're just like, let me show you this, let me show you that. Yeah. And ultimately, as we said at the beginning, just make sure whenever we are taking pictures underwater, or if you are, just make sure that you do respect the environment around you as well, and just remember that it's not a race, or else there is not going to be nothing to take a picture of. Exactamundo. But anyway, to wrap up, we spoke about underwater photography today. Good job, we're wrapping up because I'm losing the ability to speak apparently. But no, been talking about underwater photography today, and we kind of talked about a few different cameras that there are available. There obviously are loads more, so I think definitely do your research. Make sure you openly speak about it on the Girls That Scuba community, because it's a great resource that is there to help you, and ultimately enjoy it, because it's fun. It's fun to take pictures. Get all your pictures in frames, put them all over the house. Yeah. But anyway, we are going to leave it there for today, because we have run out of time, but we are really excited to be back with you with another episode soon, and we hope that you do leave a review on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you're listening on, and let us know what you want to hear in the podcast. Maybe you have something in specific you want us to talk about. Do drop us an email or a message on one of our social media platforms as well. Yes.